my God. How are you?
Good.
I can't believe I'm looking at you.
I know it's been a long time, but I think the last time I saw you was my wedding.
That's right. That was 2011.
No, 2010.
Oh my God. Oh, we can't let that much time go.
I mean, you look amazing.
Oh, thanks.
And
Appreciate
checking out those backflips.
it.
I'm inspiring.
Good, good. That is my mission is to inspire as many people as I can and keep myself moving.
I love it. It's so cool. I've been back in gymnastics as well, and just trying to relearn my back walkovers and get my body back.
I was gonna say, so you have a little one running around your house.
I have two. So you may hear the footsteps of my 4-year-old,
That's okay.
and I have a 7-year-old.
What?
You know, it's crazy.
Oh my God. Okay. So I think after the the interview, we're gonna have to talk.
Lots to catch up on for sure. So
Yeah. Okay. So you're a mom, so I don't want to take up too much time. So like, they're upstairs. Who cares?
that we have family. They're good. So and my daughter's not even home yet. She's still at gymnastics practice. So
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you'll have to tell me about your, well, there's a lot you'll have to tell me, but okay, we'll get there. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to Changed for the Better, the Power of Arts in Education, episode 42.
Changed for the better, and the music made me stronger. Now I'm changed for the better. You were there for me. Community. No, I've changed.
So, I am here with somebody who I haven't seen in many, many, many years. And just looking at her face, just my heart is so happy right now. So the question is, what do you do when you have the lion's share of talent, intellect, and drive to make real change happen? Perhaps you follow this woman's path, taking great care to carve a path that suited her needs from very early on. She followed her heart's passions and explored the challenging opportunities that called to her. And that tendency started many moons ago. Now, when I first met her, she was just shy of her teenage years. She was a student in, I think it was a summer tap class that I taught in a local dance studio. She had thick Coke bottle glasses, a mop of coarse curly hair, and feet that really knew what to do in a pair of tap shoes. She was sweet, she was wide-eyed, and she was hungry to learn. Fast forward a couple of years when she danced back into my life, this time at Spring Valley High School. She had developed into this beautiful creature, long and lithe, confident, with an inordinate talent for dance. She was brilliant. She was forward thinking and never wanted to be stuck in a box. I knew then that this woman was going to make some waves in her future. I had the pleasure of teaching and collaborating with her, and her exceptional, I mean exceptional talent was a gift and a brilliant addition to my little high school dance and thespian program. And one year, I brought a grad school friend with a modern dance company in New York City into Spring Valley. And, they were doing workshops with the kids. And she made a connection that would have a lasting impact. After graduating Spring Valley in 2003, 20 years ago, We'll let that one go. She attended NYU's Gallatin School for Individualized Study, where she created her own college program. And at the same time, the Laban Institute for Movement Studies, receiving a BA in movementology and the choreographic experience, as well as a certificate in movement analysis. And when I tell you that LMA movement analysis is complicated, it's literally like learning Greek. Folded. And for years, she worked as a professional dancer, choreographer, and a teaching artist. So I just wanted to name a few accomplishments. There are a lot more, but I just wanted to name a few. So she was a dancer for Von Usser Dance Works. That was my friend who we brought in and she made the connection with. She was the co-creator of an arts education exchange in Cuba, and she was featured in several dance films by Marta Renzi. No small change. This person's presence is powerful, engaging, and evocative, no matter what she is doing. Eventually, after her dance career, she went back to NYU, to the Tandon School for Engineering, and received an MS in Organizational Behavior, Systems, and Analytics. My brain is like, whoa. And then after a few transitions into nonprofit management, leadership, and most recently, consulting in race equity, this person is now the owner and CEO for Emerging Equity, a consulting firm that focuses on cultural transformation in institutions and systems. Now, I could go on and on and on and on about the virtues of this woman, but I think it's best that we hear directly from her. So we will start simply with, what is your name, the year you graduated, although we already know that, and tell me a little bit more about what you do now.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry. I'm gonna hold it back a little bit. Tina Vasquez. I graduated in 2003. And yes, I am the proud owner of a small consulting firm, small but mighty. I have a team of 4 that work with me. We work with clients at the international, national, and local level. It's pretty awesome. My clients teach me every day. I learn so much from them, and my staff is amazing. My consultants are amazing. But I get to every day think about, what does global impact look like, regardless of whether I'm working with a local partner or a national client or an international client. And I've always been driven by social justice. That's always been my thing, no matter what I was doing. And I feel like this is the first time in my life where I have a little bit more of the reins of being able to put out what I've believed to be a better way of producing practices and developing environments for different people. And in a way, I don't feel like I've ever left choreography. I just choreograph people in organizations instead of in dance studios. Although I still teach dance. I teach dance at my, I can never leave dance.
I mean, after all of those years of lessons and working in the field, I can't imagine that you could ever just like let it go.
No. And so what's super cool is that my company is a donor to my daughter's dance school, and I'm also on staff faculty for the dance school. So I focus on the teens, and I work in the teen academy, and I choreograph pieces for the students. But I also, get this, I'm teaching pre-point, which is hilarious. Because I was never the ballerina, but I love it. And they're a whole other bag of inspiration and creativity. So I get to be creative with my clients during the day and really exercise my brain and my analytical side. And then I also get to have my artistic expression, but all of it is this extension of creating for me.
Have you ever thought of like like still performing, finding ways to perform? You still doing that?
Well, actually, speaking of Marta Renzi, I was just in Ireland in November in one of her dance films again.
So that's number 4, right?
I think that's either 4 or 5. I lost track how many films I've been in of hers, but that was really cool. I was having a difficult time in my previous firm, and so having the opportunity to go away and just really get my head cleared, get reconnected to my artistry, and to remember the place that I moved from, metaphorically and literally, was really nice. And I think was one of the contributions that was able to mobilize me into this new stage of my career. So
There's we could probably talk for 3 hours on this, but I I do want to stay focused. So we have to have more conversation all
absolutely.
about all the different, moves and the inception of this new company that you've got now. But let's pause on that, and we're going to start to look back a little bit, which I know is hard to do 20 years later. If somebody asked me, "Oh, go back to your high school days and like go and remember," I'd be like, "I went to high school? Like really?" You know? But
Like, where are they? I think my mom has them.
the pictures?
Yeah, pictures of me in high school, and I was like, they're coming. I just have to like corral them from my
Come on,
mother.
Sonia, work for me here. So I want you to use your adult brain, and I want you to go back and describe your adolescent self.
Child.
Mm,
I
mm,
would say that my adolescent self was someone who is just completely moved by her integrity. That is something that my mother instilled in me, whether she had intended to or not, was a deep sense of integrity to myself. Even when I had the most insecure moments where I had the most self-doubt, I always somehow managed to turn my self-doubt into my own vision. So like I was not a particularly great student. I was a good student in the sense that I did what I was supposed to do, but like I failed a lot. I don't know if you even knew this, but like I barely made it out of calculus. Like I was taking classes that I probably should not have been taking. But for me, I didn't really care so much about the grades. I cared about the opportunity of expansion.
mm.
I wanted to be exposed to big ideas and to be swimming in them. So I took every AP class I could possibly take, even if it made absolutely no sense. And I didn't even want to take the exams because I wasn't really interested in getting the credit. I just wanted the exposure to the thinking space. And so I think I was the kind of person who people didn't really know how to figure out. You remember Mrs. Mahalan?
Oh, she probably retired a long time ago.
Math teacher. And I remember this day like it was yesterday. I had been busting my behind trying to work it out in BC calculus. And I was just not, I was going to extra help. I had tutors, whatever. We can say all the things. I didn't sleep enough, family drama, whatever, all the things. I just wasn't hacking it. I would do really well in extra help and I would bomb my exams. Like it was just like a repetition thing. And one day I had the opportunity to speak at a race equity event conference that was happening in Rockland County. And I got permission to go. And Miss Mulholland, when I went to get her permission, she was like, dude, like, you're kind of not doing well in my class. I think you probably want to stay here. And I said to her, I hear you, but I think I've done all that I can. And this is an opportunity that's my heart is speaking to. So I'm going to go do that. And like that was the kind of thing where I just kind of always marched to my own drum. And I think that my teachers appreciated my dedication, but also just couldn't figure me out. I had lots of moments like that. I had another one, Mr. Olson. I'll never forget this one. My English teacher. He wanted us to write an essay about who you are. Like it's a piece about I am, and then write your essay. So I wrote that essay at like 2:30 in the morning, the day it was due. And I basically talked about why I was sitting here at 2 in the morning writing this essay, what I had done the night before, and why do I keep finding myself here. The next day I turned it in and Mr. Wilson gives me a B, and I asked him for feedback, and he said, well, you've told me you did this the day of, like, you're telling on yourself. And I said to him, you asked us to write about who we were. So if the writing is fine, why are you grading me on how I describe myself? And he ended up giving me an A. So like this is the kind of like brain I was walking around with. The way I kind of described it was like I felt like people kind of saw me blurry. And then there were very few people who saw me clearly. You were one of them. But there was so few people who could see me clearly. I remember taking that independent study with you. And I was putting in like math charts, and I was talking about like my summer program, learning about the new dance movement and Marxist theory and the workers movement of the 1930s. And you were just like, okay, you just embraced it. You just embraced it, gave me the space to be able to like pull my machinations together. And I think more than anything, that's what I needed. And I was able to find the adults who would give me that and then like step up to the adults that couldn't. So I think that's kind of who I was.
I remember, as I was kind of preparing for this interview, and I was trying to like go back into that headspace because it's 20 years ago, right? And then some. Since then, I have never had a student like you, like ever. And I remember thinking that I was a very young teacher, at the time, and trying to figure out what I was doing. And I think I was in the headspace of, oh my God, I have this Tina, and I know what she can do. And I know she's a big thinker. And so I'm like, there's a little bit of maybe opportunistic, thinking. I was like, whatever she wants, just like, yes, let her say what she needs. And you want to do an independent study with me? Great. Okay, perfect. Let's just do this. I think I learned a lot from you, your teenage self, in that not all students, fit the mold. And sometimes, well, no, I think all the times you have to let them breathe and figure this out because they don't even know. So I'm glad that you, felt that comfort in my space. Because I was like, well, half this stuff, I don't even know what she's talking about. And I don't really know what to do with it, but it really doesn't matter because this is what's driving her. So great. Have at it, go for it.
I mean, and that has been the story of my life. Like even in grad school, my professor at grad school, he signed in a paper, and I didn't like the topic, and I was like, for this. And like I thought his ideas were super antiquated. I mean, when I say antiquated, this man in like was it 2013 was rolling out an old TV cart, like back in the day where you pop in the VHS, like he was doing that, talking about 1975 career development, and he wanted us to write paper based on that. I was like, I'm not doing that, sir. So I wrote a paper about the topic, but the way I wanted to learn about the topic. And he gave me a B. Did the same thing. I was like, was the writing fine? He's like, the writing was brilliant, but it just wasn't what I assigned. And I was like, okay, fair enough. I'll take the B. Yeah. Because for me, at the end of the day, it's not the grade that makes me, it's the journey and the process.
Sure.
And I know I don't think in conventional ways, and I've just learned to be okay with that and to trust myself enough to go after the thing that I'm looking for. And if I didn't trust that part of me, I would never have started this company, and it would never be as successful as it is, because I'm able to see all of these experiences, all of these ways of putting like things together. I mean, there was right after college, my undergrad, I ended up doing a 3-week residency in Brazil for choreography. And they told me I could have whatever I want. So I said, I want dancers from as many different disciplines as possible, from as many different regions of the Rio de Janeiro area, from different economic backgrounds and different ethnicities. And they somehow managed to pull that off. I had people from the favelas to people who went to like the high universities. I had white people, I had Black people, I had Creole people, I had ballerinas, I had modern dancers, I had hip hop dancers, I had Lorieni was a samba champion. Like I had them all.
Oh my God.
And what was so incredible about that experience was that I got to curate a space where they got to use their life experience and their movement life experience. So not just like their experience in life, but like the way they embodied the world and interacted with the world through dance. And you let that be the language in which they had conversations, both physically in movement, but also in conversation. And I will never also forget, there's this one moment between Stella and Lorieni. Stella was this 60-year-old woman who was white and like had this contemporary dance movement background. And then, you know, Lorieni is from the favelas. She's into samba. And I was using some of the like Augusto Boal and Theater of the Press activities to engage in different topics, but also exercises. And when we were debriefing, Lorieni talked about feeling not having, like as a non-trained dancer, how she felt that she missed some of the interpretation. And the whole group rallied around her and said that your training is just as valid as Stella's, that you were trained in the streets of the favelas, and Stella can't even touch you on that. Like it's a totally different worldview that is just equally as valid. And that was always my motivation, was to level the playing field enough where people can feel validated by their own right, but also receive the feedback and validation from other people that their perspective was just as necessary and needed for something really beautiful to be created and evolve. And that's what I do in my job every day. That's what I do in companies every day. It's no different. I'm just using different tools, but it's the same kind of experience that I've always been looking for and trying to craft and create.
It is that creative brain that you have, which is like an insanely creative brain. And it's that out of the box, you know, we go to school and we, for the most part, fit into a box of some sort, whether it's on the high school or college or doctoral level. And, you know, there's like, here's a program and you're going to work through this program. And even I'm sure, you know, in the NYU Gallatin, the individualized study, you know, there was still structure that you know, you had to follow. But here it's with what you're doing now, it's anything goes. And with choreography, it's anything goes. Here, this is what my brain is saying. Let's just make something out of it. Okay. Like there's other questions, but okay. staying back on topic, which is fine. It's all good. So bringing it back into your high school experience, and please feel free to continue, like if you get inspirations, like keep going with those. I don't want to stop that if it comes out naturally. Okay. What was something that happened in the studio or in the thespian stuff at Spring Valley that helped you to manage or to regulate your adolescent self?
So I don't remember it was the ninth grade musical. I can't remember what it was. Oddly enough,
I'm gonna find out. You keep talking. I'm gonna find out.
I don't think it was Anything Goes. There's two moments.
Okay.
Let me talk about Anything Goes, because I think that was the 2003.
Hold on, I'm looking it up. 2003. No. Oh yes. Kiss Me Kate.
It was Kiss Me Kate. That's what it was. Okay.
That was your senior music. Okay. Anything Goes was your junior year. Then
Okay.
Guys and Dolls was before that, and Crazy for You was before that.
Crazy. Okay, so it was my freshman year and my senior year. There were two moments. my freshman year, you asked me to choreograph a whole section of Kiss Me Kate.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working like it was one of those moments where I was like, everyone in the room is older than me. And you put me in charge to choreograph this thing. And I wasn't really afraid of the choreography part. I was more like, why would any of these people listen to me? I'm super young.
I'm the
And
baby.
I'm a baby. It was the first time that I realized the power that I had to command a room, regardless of my age, because of what I had to say. And what I had to say, like at that time, was artistically how I wanted to see this particular scene of the musical manifest. And I think that power fueled me in a lot of different ways in other spaces. And it was something that I continued to capitalize on as I moved forward. It wasn't, it was like like, I think another birth moment for me about what the kind of leadership potential I had. And then in my senior year, I remember you feeling really disappointed because I told you I wasn't going to audition for it. And for a long time, I felt a lot of regret about not having auditioned, because I was like, that was probably the last time I'd have an opportunity like that.
Mm.
But I realized like that was also another moment of agency that I had. I had gotten really sick. I had overworked myself. I had mono, and I was still like working crazy. Like, and I think at the time I was dancing 15 classes a week, and I was working at the law firm, and I was taking all these AP classes. Like, I was doing the most.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time I chose myself in a different way. It wasn't I chose myself because this was another moment of expansion and expression, and I just couldn't let the opportunity go. It was, you're not infinite. You might have infiniteness within you, but your body is not infinite, and if you don't care for it, you won't be able to continue. And I could tell that you were really disappointed, but you also didn't make me feel bad about it. And I think that that was also one of the few moments where I felt like I was validated for that type of agency. I call those moments like the Simone Biles moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that was my Simone Biles moment before Simone Biles was even, I don't even know if she was alive at that
Born?
point.
Was she even born at that point? No, she was born just barely.
I have very few of those moments in my life because it's something I struggle with, choosing myself in that specific way.
Mm.
While I don't know that I understood that lesson at the time,
Mm-hmm.
I think now in my life, being a mother and a business owner, I understand that moment much more clearly.
Mm.
And it's something that I circle back to as another superpower of mine, is to be able to choose. Just because I say no doesn't mean I didn't choose myself. I can say no, which could also be even more so a way that I choose myself.
So I remember there were, I'll call it two Tinas. There was the Tina where we would be, in a space together and you're talking and doing, and there was almost a flibberty gibbetness, that sort of, I don't want to say anxious. It wasn't really anxiety. It was unsureness. Like you could see all the processing happening in that space, and it's like you were just trying to like figure out how you were going to get to your next thought or your next move or your next thing. And it was this like I would flibberty gibbet is like the only way that I can describe it. But then and because I knew, in your freshman year that you were heads over everybody else, forgetting your age. And I knew that you had something really special to offer. And the Flibberty Gibbet needed a good experience of leadership. And so, it's like once you turned it on, like you had a mission and you had to turn it on, Flibberty Gibbet went away. And all of a sudden, Master Tina came out and she was laying down the hammer. So it was nice to see that in real time happen. I'm glad that you had that from that experience. So what are some of the lessons that you learned there? And you talked about some, but what did you learn in the studio that you now use today?
There are so many things. And mind you, I think it's not learned, but continue to learn. Right? I think maybe the biggest lesson is how to listen to my intuition. I think that's probably the biggest. These past few years, pandemic notwithstanding, has been really hard. I made some big decisions for myself. My husband and I made some big decisions for us. We took on a lot and not really fully understanding what we decided to take on. And in the midst of trying to hold it all up, I stopped listening to myself and started listening to others.
Mm.
And I got lost. In fact, I got depressed. I mean, it wasn't good. And I think what brought me back to myself was art. And what's crazy about it, the beauty of the studio is that it's an open canvas. And that's a scary place.
Oh, yes.
It is a scary place, especially if it's just you and the four walls and the Marley. You're lucky if you have a mirror. Looking back at yourself being like, and what? And so, coming back to myself, a lot of that when I didn't have access to a studio or when I didn't have dance space, I turned to visual art. And I ended up doing a photography project that's called Quienes Me Armad. And it was a photo project that I started out with just these collages that I made and then spliced them with self photos that I took and then reinvented them. And then they became this repertoire of work that just spoke about all of these things that I forgot that I had inside of myself. And got to exhibit some of that art, which was really cool. And have my kids see it in this exhibit with other artists. And, that there's this part of me that is just as vibrant and full, even when I'm not wearing my CEO professional hat. That, the artist always lives within. And now I think I'm learning, how does the artist get to live out too, regardless? So
Have they seen, I'm assuming they've seen you dance.
Yeah. No, and I've had some really cool moments where I've even gotten to dance with them in the dance studio, dance performances. That's been...
Oh, do you have any videos of that?
I do.
I would love to see that. I really would. I want to see your kids in action. I want to see like the little Tinas, like running around.
Dance is a main feature in our house. Like this morning, there was a dance off in the kitchen before school. So there's always happening.
That's the way it's got to be.
I think that was the biggest lesson, was coming back to my intuition.
Yeah.
Trusting myself.
It's
I'm
hard.
still learning. Oh my God, it's hard.
It's hard. I've talked a lot with a lot of people and I've written a lot about imposter syndrome. Do you get like hooked into that? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, on any given day, I'm talking with other CEOs, executive directors. I mean, people who manage millions of dollars in funds, who have the power to shift thousands of lives, and they're looking to me for advice. And I'm like, I don't know. And it's not true that I don't know. I actually have a lot of opinions about it. And so I think what snaps me out of the imposter syndrome is the fact that I have a lot of opinions about it, having been someone who's been on the other side and experienced the decisions of others. So I take the responsibility very heavily of being clear about what I know, being clear about what I don't know, and then also recognizing that sometimes just because I don't know it doesn't mean I don't know it. And that can be really tricky, in this space.
Sometimes, when you're talking to other people, this happens to me all the time. You're talking to other people and you're engaging in whatever the topic is, and something comes out and you feel like you have to respond immediately, to know immediately what the next thought is. And I get stuck in this because I like, there are times when I literally just draw a blank. And it's not because, I don't know things. It's just that, whatever the gears that are shifting are not putting me into that headspace for probably 5 different reasons. And I just can't get there at that time. So sometimes it's like, let me think about that. Let me get back to you on that one.
Oh my God, absolutely. It was one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I had gotten from my staff was, you never take a breath. You're always like on it, on it, on it, on it, on it. And like, are you really on it? And I had to really take a look at that. I had gotten so used to, for all this confidence that I talk about, and trust, there's also this other side of it where I have felt I've had to prove myself. And we all have that experience in different ways, but that sense of needing to validate oneself in front of someone else. And so, the interpretation in my world and wanting to be taken seriously and also trusted that I know my stuff is like, what does the pause mean to the other person? Like, how are they interpreting my pause? And as I came back to myself through my art, decided that it didn't matter what they thought. What more mattered was like, did I need the pause? Even if I had the thought or the answer or the question or the thing, did I really need to give it all up so quickly?
Mm.
And might I reserve it for myself to maybe even evolve the thought even further that could better serve the person I'm trying to support?
Indeed.
And so that has been part of the practice too, is appreciating that I don't actually need to be validated. And now also I've done enough work to prove myself. And so now it's not that I have to prove myself to others, but it's more of a recognition of where I'm at and what I have to offer. Not that there's not more places to grow, but I can feel at least secure in that, like, I am exactly where I belong.
Well, and you are like always, you have been creating that path since you're young, since you're a baby. So we'll just keep hacking down the trees and carving that path to get to your next steps. How do you think you have changed since you graduated from high school?
Ooh, there are so many ways that I think I am the same, but changed. Like, maybe myself in a different shade, if that makes sense. I would say the biggest way that I have changed was really dealing with my people pleasing complex. And this is what's interesting when you're a teenager. You don't really decode your behaviors. You just act. Your adult years where you go back and decode them because now they're causing you problems. And you're like, oh, like that thing I never dealt with. Well, I better go deal with that thing because now it's wreaking havoc in my life. And one of those things was actually stemming from my tumultuous relationship with my father. And most people in high school didn't know what was happening in my personal life. And it wasn't like I was hiding it. It just wasn't a thing that I talked about.
And you're doing other things.
I was doing other things and I was fine, well adjusted enough. But like there was some really crazy stuff going on behind the scenes. And my father and I had like a really crazy relationship. And he was going through a lot, dealing with, his alcoholism and other things. And my way of trying to be connected to him was always trying to find a way that he would accept me and trying to fit in his box, which I think is probably why I spent so much time outside of that relationship not trying to fit in any boxes, because I spent so much time trying to fit in his box.
And it's
And
exhausting.
it is exhausting. And I realized that some of the things that I had learned watching my parents and my relationship with my dad and even my mother was that I would be willing to work to the detriment of myself for someone else as a way to protect myself.
Mm.
And I did that a lot in high school. And I've only in the past few years, one of the things that I think I would, pay homage to the pandemic for, having to slow us all down enough to let life kind of smack us in the face and be like, here's all the things that you didn't deal with. Well, now you have all this isolated time to deal with them. So I felt like I was literally dealing with my past lives, my ghosts, my past self that just never took the time to heal some of those wounds.
Mm.
And so I think the way that I am changed is that I don't move from my child self as much. She kind of like rides with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you really don't want to do that, but we're going to do that. Just put the seatbelts on and you'll be all right.
You'll be okay.
And you'll be okay.
Mm.
And and that like extricating my inner child and allowing her to be her own thing and allowing my adult self to be her own thing, and taking care of myself in that way has been part of that journey. So I think that's probably the biggest way that I've changed is that acknowledgement that those ways of trying to exist and be okay in the world actually don't serve me anymore, and I don't need those mechanisms. So
Yeah. Well, in that light, what would your adult self tell your high school self now to like ease the way?
yeah, I know you gave this question ahead of time, and I still am like, I don't know what I would tell myself. And here's why I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because anything that I would say now would probably alter the course of those decisions that she made. But I needed her to make all those decisions so that I could be where I am now.
Mm.
So I think if anything, I would just say to her, keep on, keep on, do you.
It's so funny. I ask this question of people and they work hard to come up with like this, great advice and blah blah blah. And I think, and of course because it's you, I think that's the first time somebody said like I really don't know what I would say. Perfection. All right. Well, so what's something that you're grappling with now as your older Tina self?
Finances. It's really boring, but I am grappling with finances. It's one of those things where if it's not something that is actively discussed as a child, or you're exposed to the management of, or if you're exposed to the management of but not a discussion of why, then you just continue to do those things that and when I said like these things don't serve me anymore, those ways of relating to money no longer serve me. And so figuring out how to have a different relationship to my financial life has been another really big awakening. My husband hasn't been well, so he's been out of work coming now 2 years. He's going to be coming back to work, which is really wonderful. He's going to be doing this really cool opportunity. But that has meant I needed to figure out how to hold us together for that time, with medical bills piling up and kids needing to have experiences, and my working through everyone else needs to be okay so I can be okay, right? How it all just kind of comes together, and then it leads into a little bit of a mess.
Mhm.
But like I said about my teenage self, it's stressful when I think about it big picture. But when I think about the present, like when I'm present with myself, I recognize that I am exactly where I need to be to learn the things that I need to learn, to go where I need to go. So I've decided that this year is going to be like, we need to learn how to manage our finances a lot better. And it goes back to, and it's deeper than that, why I picked finances as the thing, because going back to the people pleasing and the protecting of myself, there were ways in my marriage that I would take on the big stuff because I wanted him to be safe, or I wanted him to not have to hurt or deal with stuff. But I was doing him a disservice.
Mm.
And then I end up doing myself a disservice. And so, he and I coalesced around, like, we both need to recognize how we are using our coping mechanisms to just power through.
Mm.
It's not just a me thing. It's just an us thing, because we're choosing to do this together. So focusing on the finances as a joint venture instead of a my venture has been really beautiful. It's brought us closer. And so, like, even though the finances are crazy, my marriage is really amazing. Which tends to be like the other way around, which is like when the finances are insane, the marriage is up,
So it
going
falls
downhill.
apart.
But that's
Mm.
but that's, I'm very grateful that that's not what's happening.
Mm.
But I think that's because both of us are looking at it bigger than just, the dollars in the bank. So
Which, by the way, that wedding that I was very fortunate to attend was so beautiful. And again, out of the box, it was this beautiful outdoor wedding. I didn't remember where it was, but it was like this beautiful sort of bucolic setting. And I remember there were these like little mason jars with candles in it, kind of all over the place. And I just was like, oh God, this is just fantastic and beautiful. And I'm so happy to be here and celebrate this love between these two people who are just adoring of each other. So
that wedding was really special. I feel like that was like the definition of me and Judd's life, which is all hands on deck. That we had less than no money to pull that wedding off. And when I say everybody chipped in, like, there was not a single aspect of that wedding that a community member did not touch.
Mhm.
Like, like when I say I had no money, I spent $250 on a ton of fabric and made my wedding dress and all my bridesmaids' dresses. Cause like ain't nobody got money to buy nothing. The chairs, this is a funny story. So the company that we got the chairs from, we got the really cheap chairs.
Mhm.
And when we realized it was a wedding, the company went back and got the more expensive chairs because they couldn't live with themselves giving us these chairs.
Just wait a second. We'll be right back.
And then we had someone allowed us to plant a garden in their yard to reap the flowers for the flower, for the wedding. And then the garden went fallow over because there was a freeze over. So a cousin was working at a farm and the farm donated all the flowers. So they literally just got buckets of flowers, and then a bunch of family just went and cut and like put them in these little mason jars that I went shopping with my mother-in-law at like these yard sales all over Maine to just like cobble a bunch of glass things together that might look pretty.
Mhm.
It was that kind of shindig.
But
It
once
was
again, this is the creativity at work. This is that kind of out of the box brain that just, oh, we have this problem. Well, let's just do this thing and make this happen. Because the bottom line is the goal is for you, not the bells and whistles. It's what's at the heart of it that's most important. So, yeah, I want it pretty. Yeah, but there's a lot of different ways that things can be pretty. And when you have the people around you, like that's really like 75% of the battle.
100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it was, I think back at my wedding and I can't help but smile. Like the things that happened there, like my uncle playing trombone and one of Judd's friends playing the djembe at the same time to like one of my favorite Puerto Rican songs. And then everyone's dancing on the dance floor. And it was just about people being together.
Mm.
Everything around it was like, whatever. It didn't, we could have had none of those things and it still would have been a great time.
For sure.
I
It's
love
just
what you said.
people being present in the moment. Here we are. Let's just celebrate this in our own way. So tell me one thing that you miss about your high school self and one thing that's gotten better.
Yep, this was one I thought about too, and I was like, I didn't think about that time or her. I wouldn't know. I don't know that I'd say that I miss this. I'd say that I find myself revisiting it. Can I twist it like that?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, of course. Like I can't just answer a straight question.
Nor would I expect you to.
Only because like when I think like when I try to be really honest with myself when I listen to that question, like what do I miss? Like nothing comes up in terms of miss, but what does come up is nostalgia that I often bring into my present, which is being creative. And there were so many spaces and places where I just got to play as a teenager, whether I got to the dance studio early and I choreographed dances, or, I got to write in my journal or, take an art class. There was just so many ways that I got to do that and not necessarily feel all of the adult pressures. I think there were other pressures, but not necessarily like, oh, I gotta make sure mortgage gets paid and that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Finances, right? So there's that freedom that feels nostalgic. And then when I think about that, I hate the idea that that has to be a memory. So then when that happens, I bring it to the present.
Mm.
So what I do to like reclaim that is like I find new ways to express myself in very small moments. So in between meetings, and I think this is another question you're going to ask about like how you like self-care.
Mm.
But one of the ways that I like tap into that nostalgia is that I have drawing around my desk.
Mm.
So like I do that while I'm like, if I need a moment, I just do that. Or, I created my affirmations box. I have it by my desk. So there are these ways that I tap into that makes it doesn't make it feel like something I have to miss because it's something that I have with me.
Mm.
If that makes sense.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's a part 2 to that, which was the adult.
What has gotten one thing that's gotten better since you became an adult?
So I will say one thing that has gotten better is my health. I don't know if you remember how sick I was at the
All the
time.
time. I remember you were very like upper respiratory stuff.
In and out of hospitals. I was on 5 different medications to manage my asthma.
Yeah.
Sick all the time. And in 2009, I had a breaking point where I ended up in the hospital for a week. Like my lungs were totally like congested. Like it was terrible. And I was so determined. It was a combination of like my parents' divorce, insurance fiasco. I started having to hustle for my medication with my friends who had doctors for parents because I couldn't afford the fair market price and I didn't have insurance. So all of that combination plus stress just totally took my body out. And I was determined to change my life so that I did not need to be dependent on medication. And for 2 years, I completely changed my diet. I had no sugar, no wheat, no dairy, nothing that was processed. Everything was fresh, all the things. It was really hard to do. I like quit a bunch of dance gigs and dance jobs and like stuck to 2 things or 3 things, I think, at the time. So I wasn't like working 24/7. And I just like created fearsome boundaries. Like that's when I was like, I'm not working on weekends. Like that is my standard. Weekends are untouchable. I'm not doing it anymore. And I'm medication free. I'm not on medication at all to regulate my asthma at all. And I have been like this since 2010.
God,
So
that's amazing.
I'm really grateful.
Grateful to yourself because you did it yourself.
I had help. Judd was a huge help. Judd nursed me through it. My God. All the cooking he had to do. He was so sweet. He went on the diet with me.
Oh,
We got to do this together, and definitely nursed me back to health.
we haven't connected, all these years. So, and the time just kind of, the pages fly off the calendar. And I remember that wedding. I was like, oh my God, they're so blah, blah, blah. And you're also, I know that you're also not a big social media person poster. Like I was trying to do my research, and looking up, what you've been doing and where you've been. I'm like, oh my God, there's like nothing. There's like nothing. So I was like, oh my God, like, where are they? Is everything good? Blah, blah, blah. I knew that there was at least one child. I did not know there was two. And that they're the 4 and 7. Like I can't.
Well, what's really funny? When I changed my Facebook profile, it was like years after I had Makai, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, congratulations, you're pregnant!" I started chuckling because I was like, "Oh,
Not really."
I was like, "Thank you." 3 years later, yeah, I'm not a big social media person. I don't know if it's that I'm private or too lazy to put stuff on there, but I also feel like I'm too busy living it. I don't know.
You are. You absolutely are. No, it's okay. Like I respect. I spend too much time on all that stuff. I'm like, oh, I did gymnastics. Now you have to watch it.
Yeah, backflip was so badass, by the way.
Well, yeah. Thanks. If you could give a piece of sage advice to high school students now, what would that be?
Trust yourself. Trust yourself.
Mm.
Listen to yourself. And I feel like the world is only going to get crazier. It's only going to get crazier, and our young people are just going to get saner. I know that sounds kind of oxymoronic, but when I'm looking at the young people that I work with, they know things in such a profound way because they are living the end of a time. I think like my generation, your generation, we're still in that period of, is it really ending? Like we're still attached to what was, but I see these young people are like, no, the end is very clear. My prayer for young people is that they just trust their own gut. They trust themselves and they don't allow social media, propaganda, other people's values to get in the way of what they're here to do. Because I feel like young people, if adults can get out of their way, they're going to be really clear about what they need to do.
Yeah, I think about my my older daughter, who is 20.
So insane.
Yes.
It is so insane.
The one who is in the carrier. Yes. She is 20. She's a junior in college now. And I will say, and I can fully admit this, she is way smarter than I am and way more connected than I was, and probably still am, but when I was her age, oh God, I didn't know anything, and she probably knows way too much for her own like sanity, her own mental health, but I feel like she's starting to grow more into her mature adult brain now. It's like that's starting to catch up to where her intelligence level is. And I feel like if those two pieces can like converge in a positive way, I can only imagine like what she and the people around her are going to be able to think about and accomplish and try and move the needle in ways that we couldn't have imagined doing. You know, I feel like I as a 51-year-old, you know, can support that effort, but for me to actually like be the change and make the change and steer it, it's like a, a little past my pay grade at this point. But I feel like their generation is more equipped to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I think yeah, I feel like the adults in young people's lives, not all of us see that. I think some of us are still trying to corral them. And it's not about having a hands-off approach, but it is certainly about not projecting our stuff onto them. And I know that's challenging, but I think what does make young people crazy is when they are projected onto.
Mm-hmm.
That's the crazy thing,
Yeah.
you know.
Listen, you're going to be going through the teenage phase way sooner than you expect. And it starts earlier than you expect too. It always starts earlier than you expect. We had to learn the hard way, like how to get out of the way. And you know, because when you're a parent, you think your job is to you know, mold them and prepare them and all that. But a lot of that preparation is more about supporting them and them in terms of them figuring out how to support themselves. And
Yeah.
that's a tough pill to swallow when you're like, you know, a control freak and you're like, you just want them to be good people. You just want them to be successful. You just want them blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
You'll see. Twice.
I don't know. I feel like I'm starting to see it already. My 4-year-old will be saying stuff to me. Just be like, you want to hear a very quick funny story?
Yeah.
So yesterday, Makai, or 2 days ago, I pulled something out of the closet for her and I was like, hey, you haven't worn this in a while. Would you like to wear it? She takes my hand. She's like, come with me. It's 4. Come with me. Just like that, walks me to her closet and she says, look at my closet. What do you see? I was like, I don't know, Makai, clothes. She's like, decorative clothes. Is that decorative? Like, no. She's like, so why would I want to wear that?
Oh, Tina.
Like, you know what? You can put it back or you can pick something else. I'm good. You good? I'm good.
I'm out of here. I'm
I'm
just
gonna
gonna
just take
leave because you don't need me here.
here. But she literally took my hand. She's like, come with me. These are my children.
They are at least half you. So
Yes.
be prepared for some out of the box thinking.
Yes.
Last question. What are 3 self-care practices that you do to help to regulate yourself?
Okay. The first is the coloring. The coloring is really where it's at for me. I've got a box now of all of my coloring shenanigans. And you can see some of them on Instagram. I put some of those on Instagram.
Okay.
That's the first.
And what do you use? Crayon, marker, like pencil? What do you use?
I use gel pens.
Mm.
A variety of gel pens and marker pens. Those are my favorite. And sometimes I'll paint. I haven't painted in a long time, like actually sat down and painted. But I like to do that. The next is crocheting. I love to crochet. So
Are you really good at it? Like, do you make, you know, really intricate stuff, or it's just like, nope, I just like the process?
yep, no, the latter.
Yeah.
So like I like learning different stitches, but at the end of the day, I just like the monotony and not to have to think about it. I don't even like to count. So if I can't make something by sight, I don't want to make it, because if I have to count, I'm not interested. That's not what I'm here for.
Too much work.
Here for. So I'm always getting to the end. I'm like, I think that was like one stitch over. Oh well, keeping it going. That kind of thing.
Doesn't have to be straight lines.
Nope.
You can put tassels on the end. It's fine.
So I like do a little border thing. It'll work out fine. And then there are, I think, a variety of other things that feel a little less healthy that I do, but they're there. And so sometimes I'll smoke a black and mild. Sometimes I'll drink a glass of wine. Those are other vices I use that will just like wasabi. I would say as my third. There are a couple of other things. Meditation has been something that is not always easy for me, but I've been studying some different meditative practices. Yeah, right, because the brain is always. So I've been doing some meditation work at night to help at least get my brain to shut down, and that's been helpful.
Wow. Well, my mind is totally blown because you've changed, but you haven't changed. Like you are still fundamentally Tina Louise that I remember. The more mature Tina actually hit me at some point. I don't remember whenever you were dancing with Von Ooster, but not in the very beginning. In the very beginning, you were still young and sort of like apprenticey, kind of person. But it was when you had been through it for several years and you were helping Astrid, kind of with the running of the company. And that's when I started to see the more mature Tina. And I kind of like was taken aback because the girl that I, knew, she was different. And I was like, oh, she's more something now. And maybe it's that sort of imposter syndrome of my own making. I'm like, oh, okay, she has outgrown, she has moved on. Crazy as that might sound, I'm so happy to sit and talk with you on this level, because we both have a little bit of stuff going on here. And I feel like we're kind of more contemporaries now. And I love that so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Tiro. You'll always be Mrs. Tiro to me, though.
You're killing me, kid.
I love that my administrative coordinator also was like, "Hi, Mrs. Tiro." I was dying. I was like, "Yes."
Me, that was very cute. I was like, oh my God, I'm like the old spinster. Holy God.
No, you're not. It's just a respect thing.
I know. And I do appreciate that, but you got to cut that out.
Okay.
We're done with that.
Okay.
When you start getting this in your hair, it's over.
Yeah, we are. The really funny thing is that I think we have the same amount, of grays, which I think I was looking at pictures of Makai, and I was like, wow, 4 years ago I had one gray hair. So that is this is a demonstration of what my life has been like the past 4 years.
Oh yeah, it's like this has the kid's name on it, and this has the kid's name on. I got like it's all just right there.
Yep.
And then over 25 years of teaching, that's some of that is in there too.
Right. And at Spring Valley, no less, with all of the drama, the budget drama. So
that's a whole nother topic of conversation for another day. So thank you to my CEO friend, Tina Louise Vasquez. I really appreciate you taking the time out, the busy mom, the busy businesswoman, entrepreneur, for coming and talking to your old teacher. Everybody, thank you for joining us, and tune in next time for Change for the Better, the Power of Arts in Education.